They move in the dark, silent and unseen. For most of us, the name Navy SEAL brings to mind daring raids, helicopters slicing through the night, and targets taken down with surgical precision. But beyond the stories we've heard, the Bin Laden raid, the rescue of Captain Phillips, there's another world. A world of missions buried in classified files, sealed by silence, known only to those who lived them. These are the Navy SEAL missions you've never heard of. It begins in the frigid waters off the Korean Peninsula, 1950. Before the SEALs even had a name, small teams of frogmen slipped into enemy harbors with nothing but fins, knives, and courage. They called themselves UDTs, Underwater Demolition Teams. Their job was simple and suicidal: clear mines and obstacles ahead of amphibious landings. Off Wonsan Harbor, under a moonless sky, men from UDT-3 crept beneath the surface, counting enemy mines by hand, marking safe passage for the invasion fleet above. When dawn came, battleships opened fire, trusting charts drawn by men who'd risked everything underwater. That quiet, unseen courage would later become the DNA of the SEALs. 2 decades later, Vietnam became the crucible that would forge their legend. Official records list operations like Phoenix or Market Time, but tucked inside those reports were missions without names, black operations conducted deep in the Mekong Delta, where SEALs operated in the shadows between the U.S. and South Vietnamese commands. They didn't just fight, they hunted intelligence, slipped into enemy villages disguised as fishermen, and swam through mangrove swamps so thick they could barely breathe. One SEAL recounted watching tracer fire cut across the water like red lightning, feeling the heat of it graze his face as he dragged a wounded comrade toward extraction. Officially, it never happened. Unofficially, those missions shifted the balance of power in entire provinces. In 1972, as America's war in Vietnam wound down, another secret fight erupted in the Gulf of Thailand. A North Vietnamese trawler was spotted carrying Soviet-made weapons to communist insurgents. A small SEAL detachment was dispatched to intercept. The trawler was sunk in shallow waters, but intelligence suggested survivors had made it to shore. What followed was a 4-day manhunt through dense jungle, where SEALs moved silently, guided only by infrared scans from overhead aircraft and the intuition of men who'd long since learned to feel danger before they saw it. When it was over, no official report mentioned the SEALs' presence, only that hostile activity had been neutralized. By the 1980s, their world had grown darker still. Cold War politics pulled SEALs into missions so secret, even Congress wouldn't to hear about them for decades. In 1983, during the invasion of Grenada, SEALs swam ashore to secure the governor's mansion, only to find themselves under heavy fire, radios dead, cut off from support. The plan had gone wrong, but they held their ground, buying time for the main force to land. That same year, halfway across the world, another team inserted off the coast of Lebanon to recover downed pilots, missions that never made the headlines because they were never meant to. In 1989, Operation Just Cause in Panama revealed a glimpse of their reach. Officially, SEALs were tasked with disabling Manuel Noriega's aircraft to prevent his escape. Unofficially, they also had orders to gather intelligence on cocaine shipments that linked the dictator ES regime to cartels stretching from Medellin to Miami. SEALs infiltrated hangars at night, planting charges and capturing documents that would later form part of sealed investigations into drug trafficking networks tied to international politics. It was a mission that blended counterterrorism, counterintelligence, and the quiet war against organized crime, a mission few would ever learn about. Then came the 1990s and the Persian Gulf. Operation Desert Storm had its heroes in the skies, but beneath the waves, SEALs were mapping mines, boarding ships, and scouting beaches along Iraq's southern coast. There was one mission, never officially named, where SEALs swam into the Kuwaiti shoreline to plant sensors, tiny devices that could detect Iraqi troop movements by vibration. Working under moonlight, they crawled through oil-soaked surf, the smell of crude thick in the air, watching black smoke from burning wells roll across the horizon. When Iraqi forces later moved south, U.S. command already knew, hours in advance. The censors had done their job. After September 11th, the SEALs entered a new era, one of constant, invisible war. Everyone knows Operation Neptune Spear, the raid that killed Osama bin Laden, but few know of the missions that came before and after, shaping the ground beneath it. In the early months of 2002, SEALs conducted reconnaissance deep inside the Shah-e-Khat Valley during Operation Anaconda. Intelligence reports mention satellite imagery, but much of that data came from human eyes belonging to SEALs perched on freezing mountain ridges, calling in coordinates by hand. One team, after being compromised, fought their way through a blizzard for nearly 30 hours, carrying their wounded. None of their names appeared in the after-action summary. In 2009, somewhere off the Horn of Africa, a SEAL team boarded a hijacked vessel in the middle of the night, not the Maersk, Alabama, but another ship whose name remains redacted. Hostages had been moved below deck. Using suppressed weapons and night vision, the SEALs cleared the ship room by room, neutralizing the pirates and rescuing the crew without a single casualty. The operation was classified as a maritime recovery exercise, never linked to the SEALs publicly. But the shipping company later received an anonymous message. Your men are safe. The sea is clear. Even more secret were the joint operations that blurred lines between intelligence and warfare. SEALs embedded with the CIA's Special Activities Division in places where the U.S. officially had no presence. In Syria, in Yemen, in parts of Africa, most maps don't bother naming. They hunted high-value targets while building local alliances, missions that might never be acknowledged even decades later. One SEAL, years after retirement, said simply, "You'd be surprised where the American flag flies at night." There was a mission in 2013 off Somalia's coast, where a SEAL team attempted to capture an Al-Shabaab leader during a storm so violent that waves broke over their boats. They were spotted before reaching shore. A firefight erupted in waist-deep surf, bullets snapping like rain. The team withdrew under cover of darkness, carrying a wounded teammate who refused to be medevaced until every man was safe. The world never knew it happened. For the SEALs, it was another night at work. But their missions aren't always about killing or capture. In 2014, a SEAL team operating in West Africa was ordered to secure an Ebola research facility during an outbreak. Their job wasn't to fight, but to protect scientists, medical staff, and local civilians. Wearing hazmat suits instead of combat gear, they stood guard as doctors worked to contain the virus. They weren't there for glory, and they didn't seek it. When the outbreak was over, the world credited doctors and aid workers, as it should. The SEALs went home quietly, their presence erased from official accounts. In recent years, their focus has shifted again, to cyber warfare, to drones, to silent influence operations where no shots are fired, but nations are destabilized. Some SEAL units now specialize in unconventional missions involving data theft, sabotage of digital networks, and cooperation with intelligence agencies to prepare the ground for future conflicts. These are the new frontiers of special operations, where physical strength matters less than precision, intellect, and the ability to operate in moral gray zones. Through it all, one thing hasn't changed: the weight they carry, the silence. Every SEAL mission, known or unknown, comes with a cost. Sometimes it's a body left behind. Sometimes it's the years of classified secrecy that follow, the inability to explain to family or friends where you've been or what you'd done. For every headline-grabbing success, there are 100 missions no one will ever talk about, where courage unfolded in the dark with no cameras, no parades, no medals. They've swum beneath nuclear submarines, retrieved lost satellites from the ocean floor, and shadowed Russian ships through Arctic waters disguised as civilian research crews. They've gone into caves in Afghanistan, tunnels in North Korea, and shanty towns in Latin America. They've rescued prisoners, captured warlords, and stopped atrocities before they began. All without recognition, without credit, sometimes without even acknowledgement from the country they serve. The SEALs have a saying, "The only easy day was yesterday," but what that really means is something deeper, that the hardest battles are often the ones no one will ever see. The missions we know about are only the surface. Beneath lies a hidden history of courage, sacrifice, and silence. The kind of silence that keeps the world turning while the rest of us sleep, unaware of the storms held back in the night. Because sometimes, the greatest stories are the ones that can never be told.